Law and Order in Uttar Pradesh as its former Director General of Police. He is with us. Bhanu Pratap ji, welcome. I have a few very straight and tough, pointed and piercing questions for you. Why was the UP police so lackadaisical in its deployment yesterday? You know, the BJP spokesperson obviously can't tell the difference between when weapons are cocked and when the forces are ready to fire versus just casually strolling around with their weapons pointing downwards. It just seems to have been a very casual attitude in a very tense situation. Is the UP police complicit? Were they completely lackadaisical? Why did they act so unprofessionally?
Mr. Kawal, I respect your perception, but I disagree.
Okay.
You have mentioned that you are a son of an army officer. Perhaps your perception is influenced by that. The response of army and police are totally different as far as the using of arms are concerned. For in army, it is a bullet for a bullet. Enemy is an enemy. For a police, these are not enemy whom we face. And we open fire only in self-defense.
Sir, I'm talking about the bandobast. Now, in the middle of the night, when these goons are coming out. Okay, go on, make your point.
Please don't interrupt.
Sir.
So that apart. Now coming to bandobast. Every bandobast is done on the basis of threat perception. The access control, anti-sabotage check and everything. You have been hammering on one point that the lack of numbers of the police. Number of police is based on the threat perception. And there are multiple force multipliers also, technologically also and arms also, which must have been used there. It is too early to say that it has been a lackadaisical approach. The commission has been formed. Every aspect would be gone into it.
So this looks like a parade. Why were these dons taken for a routine medical examination to hospital? Why couldn't the doctors come to the Prayagraj jail? If a medical examination and not a parade is what you had in mind, this examination could have happened inside the hospital. Why were they taken? Why were they paraded in front of the full glare of the cameras in this fashion?
That's a question that you should ask your professional colleagues. In fact, that is one thing which is going to be an important aspect for police and administration to look into, to form an SOP, how to handle such sensitive groups like journalists and advocates. Because you would agree, and everybody would agree, that journalists are very sensitive when it comes to the frisking and checking and following the security protocol.
So I'm asking you a straight question. You've kind of answered it, but you dodged it towards the end. Do you accept, as former Director General of Police in Uttar Pradesh, that taking these mafia dons for a routine medical examination in the late part of the night to a hospital was a grave mistake?
It wasn't. Everything has to be done under the order of the court. Had the court ordered that you would not take them to the hospital for the medical and call the doctor to the jail, it could have been done. Medical checkup is done in the hospital.
No, sir, there are enough cases where medical checkups happen inside the prison as well. They don't always happen inside the hospital. You've been DGP, you know that well, sir.
Yes, I know. I do.
Then, unless you're parading them, why would you do this?
When somebody is in jail, that is a judicial custody. And whatever is to be done has to be done under the order of the court. It is not the police who decides what is to be done inside the court. We decide what is to be done inside the police thana. But once a person has gone inside the jail, he is under the judicial custody, and it is the judicial authorities who decide as to what process has to be followed.
Then why are they being paraded on foot? Why couldn't they have been taken in an ambulance? They would have been taken in a cavalcade. They are being paraded on foot, where the risk to them is much higher.
Ambulance is used for somebody who is medically incapacitated or wounded. Were they medically incapacitated or wounded? Did they need oxygen? Did they need some immediate medical response? Should they have been taken to ambulance? They were taken in a police vehicle.
They could have been taken in a cavalcade. They could have been taken in a cavalcade without being paraded on the ground. You're trying to do a numaish. You're trying to show that you're tough on law and order.
It is not the numaish. When they were taken, there was no numaish at all. When they were taken out of the police vehicle and taken inside the hospital, the media persons surrounded them. And the
because you stopped at the sir, if the police wanted to do it without anybody finding out, they would have done it without anybody finding out. The police has done it in a manner that everybody found out. That was your whole intention. You wanted to parade them.
No, how could you? I mean, this is a presumption. This is a presumptuous question that we wanted everybody to find out. That is your perception. Well, you have every right to that. But then, how can you deny media persons access? You would be raising ruckus. You would be raising objection for that. Why are you
Sir, tell
removing the
me
media
this,
person?
sir, Bhanu Pratap ji, tell me this. Why has the police not asked for police custody? Given that there are so many unknown questions, why would
Yes,
you be
yes.
okay with judicial custody?
Look, Rahul, you should be aware of the judicial process.
Okay.
Today is holiday. Sunday is
Okay.
not the regular magistrate; it is a duty magistrate, and every magistrate has certain circumspected jurisdiction. Yes, there was a discussion for the duty magistrate. He could have granted police custody, but normally duty magistrate don't do it. It is the competent court, the judicial magistrate, which grants these kind of passes these kind of an orders. How do you know we are not going to ask, or the police is not
But
going to
does it
ask for
not
the police
appear
custody
odd, because
tomorrow?
in cases with much lesser crime, the police would insist on police custody? Now, who are these guys? How do they know each other? How did they find out when Atiq and Ashraf would be coming out of jail? All those are questions the UP
Why,
police should be
why
itching to
can't
sink
we,
their teeth into.
why can't we wait till tomorrow? How do you know that police is not going to file an application for police custody tomorrow in front of the competent judicial authority and not in front of the duty magistrate, who perhaps could have said, even if they had filed, and perhaps they must have requested for it. The duty magistrate must have told them, you go before the competent judicial authority who has this authority to grant judicial
Why were the two
police
dons
custody.
handcuffed together? There are so many orders of the Supreme Court, including the 1978 case of Sunil Batra versus the Delhi administration and others, where the instructions on how handcuffs should be and should not be used, and it's not encouraged for two criminals to be handcuffed together. You know that well, sir. Why were they
Yes,
handcuffed together?
I know, and we as police officers are expected, and we do it also, to read and follow in toto, word by tim, all the judicial orders by the Honorable Supreme Court or any other competent courts. And yes, in heinous offences, handcuff is permitted, or in cases where you have this kind of apprehension that the criminal is so hardened that he may attempt fleeing away. So you are permitted to use handcuffs, but not in the normal way. That is the order. And as far as your question is, why are they handcuffed together? Normally, if you see that when two criminals they come along, they normally are handcuffed together only. It is not that you have to give them, and it is for the security also, that the both should walk together. If you handcuff two people in two different chains, they will have to walk separately also. So these are the police angles which must be understood. And as I said earlier, a commission has been formed. And if there has been any lapses, that would have been found, that would be found out, and corrective measures would be taken. But to say that it was a lackadaisical and a taken for granted kind of an approach for a professional police force like UP, I would say it is highly
No,
presumptuous.
because when this case came up in the court, the Supreme Court, remember, Atiq Ahmed had gone to court, and at that time, the Supreme Court ruled to say that their security would be taken care of by the state. This is when Atiq is saying they want to kill me, and because of what happened in the Vikas Dubey case, he was apprehending the same would happen. The Supreme Court actually had faith in your ability to protect both these criminals, and that clearly wasn't the case.
We are not shying away from our responsibility, and this is not the first time that he was brought from Sabarmati jail to UP. He had been brought earlier also, and ensconced there back in full security. He was secured there. He was brought here also, this time also, and in full security, and he was there. But then surprise element is there with the criminals, and they posed as journalists. They intermingled in the journalists. The question is that, are they pawns or they were the real criminals? How could they get the camera and the mic and everything, and the clothes and the kind of a body demeanor that made them look like journalists? And even the journalists could not suspect that some odd people have joined their group.